Greetings tonight, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. Tonight, we are going to discuss all about Solarpunk. And Solarpunk is pretty much what you see behind me right here. The idea that we can live in a technological world, very advanced, but also one that is in harmony with nature. And so Solarpunk is something that I have been already really interested in, and many of you have seen some of my videos talking about this as we head into the technological age. How do we, nature-loving folk, how do we, actually deal with this? And one way is to join the Solarpunk movement. And so tonight is all about just bringing awareness to this movement that is growing. This is a large community that is definitely gaining members daily. As soon as people discover what it is and they have that term, then they can kind of join in and spread the word. It's Solarpunk. So I'm really excited to talk about this today. It's not going to be a very long one, but I hope that I can help to spread awareness of this movement. So hopefully I have some Solarpunks with me tonight who can leave their own knowledge, some of their own wisdom and experiences being part of the community. So I hope everybody can hear me. How is everybody doing tonight? I see 6 people on. Just let me know if you can hear me or not, because I had problems with the sound earlier. Just wanted to make sure. But what I wanted to say was that this very much like J.R.R. Tolkien's world. Good, thank you so much for letting me know about the sound. Very much like J.R.R. Tolkien. Many of you who already subscribe to my channel, you know that I place a lot of emphasis on Tolkien himself, because I believe that Tolkien had a vision. And in particular, the way that he described his elves is the way that humans can aspire to be and can already awaken into this place of where they already resonate with the way that the elves are. Because the humans in the Middle-earth world are still fighting, still arguing, still trying to grab power from one another. And the elves have simply grown up. They are the wisest beings of Arda. And so I use J.R.R. Tolkien's Elven wisdom as a way to inspire us of how we can be in our daily lives, as well as a community, and hopefully one day a world, a species, and how humanity can see itself growing up. So my visions of J.R.R. Tolkien's elves can be something that can help inspire you in a way where you can feel empowered and bring in a sense of sovereignty to yourself. Well, what I found out is that Solarpunk in an art movement, in an architectural design movement, in a green energy movement, in a future tech movement, is something that can also be inspired in the way very much like Tolkien inspired us about the elves. And so this, to me, connects greatly. And in fact, I found this wonderful Solarpunk factory behind me, or building of your choice. But this could be what the world can look like, that it has this advanced technological feel to it as we advance into using computers and we connect to each other. And we have this kind of growing type of way where we can connect around the world. But at the same time, we never forget nature, the beauty of nature, and also the beauty of art for itself. One of wonderful novels that I read, it's called The Idiot by Fyodor Dostoyevsky. And this novel, he has this quote that is about what I actually put down in the description: beauty will save the world. It's a very deep quote that you can ponder about, of all its different meanings and what it can mean. To me, why I really love that quote in general is the idea that when we imagine a world more beautiful for all, to be aesthetically pleasing, to be comfortable, relaxing to the senses, to be a place where we can enjoy ourselves and really kind of lounge out in our luxuries and enjoy this. And all souls, not just some souls, but all souls that I feel are deserving of it. And right now we have a world in which we do have different caste systems. And so the Solarpunk movement is not just about art. It's not just about aesthetics. It's not just about green tech. It's not just about that, but it's also a movement to provide a more abundant future for all souls. So to me, this is the way that we get to those dreams and those visions that J.R.R. Tolkien had for Lothlorien and Rivendell. That type of ease and way of being and life that the elves had is what Solarpunk, as an art movement, as a technological movement, can actually move us into. And interesting enough, there is a lot of connections there. So Peter Jackson made the film Lord of the Rings, and he had inspiration of the art in Art Nouveau for Rivendell and Lothlorien, for his Elven realms, which so happens to be the very inspired art style of Solarpunk. So don't go so much by the title and the name. Some of you might say, well, I'm not a punk. Well, it's more about being a little rebellious against the world that it's, the state that it's in right now, and that's the punk part of it. But it's more about the aesthetics of a very elegant world, one that if you go to the Wikipedia site and you actually learn about Solarpunk just as a definition, a general term, it's Baroque, it's Art Nouveau, and it is more of this classical elegance, very much like the Elven realms. So it's very exciting for me to find this term and to find a community that believes in elegance, in art, in beauty for humanity, but at the same time, very sustainable, eco-friendly, and green technology. We put it together and we have the most beautiful world in which beauty will save the world. It will ensure that humanity survives its climate disasters and ecological problems that it might come to if it does not have these things in mind. But it also gives people a sense of positive inspiration towards looking for the future. There's a certain type of beauty that you find in this community that shares this kind of taste, and it's just really wonderful to be part of. So I wanted to share this with you because I'm making all these great connections, and it has just been a very exciting thing for me to learn about Solarpunk. I have always been a Solarpunk elf, and so now I'm part of this community. I can see Solarpunk Life has joined me tonight, so hopefully I'll start to collaborate with those of the Solarpunk community. I'm happy to have you on, do interviews with me, and we talk about this. How can we get to the realms of Lothlorien, which is advanced technology that the elves had in J.R.R. Tolkien's story, but it's not impossible, especially if we know how to move in that direction of greener technology and move into the direction of understanding how to make more better connected type of community, smaller communities, but maybe well connected around the world. That would be ideal. And eventually possibly help to connect the whole world together. In fact, in many of the stories about Solarpunk, it's not so much about making the world all the same, but having pockets and different communities that look different and express themselves in different ways, but having the same type of transportation power, the same type of connectivity, so that all communities are connected. and they share ideas and they share information together. So no nation, no community is ever left out. So it's a really wonderful way of envisioning the future. And I just wanted to read this to you. So if you go on Kindle, there's something called the Solarpunk Ecological and Fantastical Stories in a Sustainable World. It is a collection of short stories of sci-fi, basically imagining a solarpunk society. And this is by Garrison Lodi Ribeiro. And here's his description here, which I found really fascinating. It was the right time to write stories in self-sustaining fictional civilizations, no matter if those were located in future Earths or alternate history timelines, greener and more inspiring futures or timelines not troubled by pollution, overpopulation, famine, mass extinctions, and anthropogenic global warming. After all, as a reader, I was feeling rather bored with myself with all those old dystopian plots. Weariness with dystopian plots, coupled with a growing awareness of climate change, has been a driving force in the renewed interest in ecological science fiction in the 2010s. The term solarpunk was independently coined by about half a dozen different sources amidst a host of similar terms: eco-punk, hope-punk, bright-punk, eco-fabulism, eco-speculation, etc. While it is part of the larger movement of climate fiction, the solar in solarpunk has come to represent not only the ecological aspect of this budding subgenre, but also the idea of brightness and hope. Fascinating discussions have developed about what the genre is or isn't, and what it should look like, or where it should stand politically, etc. Indeed, there is much more written about solarpunk than there is solarpunk fiction itself. One of the very first writers that actually explored solarpunk is Ursula K. Le Guin. I don't know if I'm saying her last name right. She just passed away recently, I found out. And before she did, in 2010, she wrote a novel called The Dispossessed. And I actually read it all today. You can find it on Audible. And I wrote down some important parts I wanted to read to you, describing a solarpunk world. Basically, the novel is very much in the tune of Anne Ryan, in the idea of discussing society. It's not so much an action novel, but it's more about philosophy and psychology and sociology, and looking at the world through the eyes of the main character, Shevik, who is trying to find basically utopia, trying to find the best way that society can possibly be. And so he is the one that we're following in this book. So this is what he's describing as he's seeing this one planet that he is describing as having the solarpunk type of aesthetic and way of being. The architecture was dramatic. Great masses of color was used. Heights and distances were exaggerated. The laboratories were spacious and airy. The attached factories and machine shops were housed behind splendid neo-Cyton porticos of arches and columns. The hangars were huge, multicolored domes, translucent and fantastic. They would not regress to pre-urban, pre-technological tribalism. They know that their anarchism was a product of a very high civilization, of a complex, diversified culture, of a stable economy, and a highly industrialized technology that could maintain high production and rapid production of goods. However, vast the distances separating sediments, they held to the ideal of complex organism. Centralism by intellect or intelligent computers connecting everything, the air was clear, without smoke or moisture. There was a vividness to things and a clarity. This is due to giant wind turbines, solar and hydro technologies that don't disrupt ethics or aesthetics of nature itself. The principle of organic economy was too essential to the function of society. And she goes on and she describes the way that factories look, in the idea that in this ideal society, factories are a place of high production, but the workers are not treated as if they are lower class citizens. They are happy there to create. They make the same amount of money as some of the more wealthier ones. It is, in essence, it's a more equal society in terms of economy. So this is something that, would have to be thought of in the future politically, of what this really means and entails. But it's a beautiful life for all. In fact, this is what he describes. As Shevik walked past these factories, he was constantly aware of other people walking, working, faces passing by, voices calling, people singing, people alive, people working, doing things, workshops and factories fronted on squares of cities, of open yards of greenery, and the doors were wide open. And so that's just like a little bit of just kind of the style in which she's talking about this beautiful kind of utopian society. And so Shevik is basically really asking the question, as the main character, what does it take to have the perfect society that is good for all its citizens, not just for those that are very rich, and really takes care of everybody equally? Because he quite doesn't understand this idea of inequality. He doesn't come from that type of origin in his own planet. So he is basically a wanderer going around different planets and trying to investigate and finding utopia. So it's a really wonderful novel to read if you want to explore some of the grander ideas about Solarpunk. This was a thought experiment, basically, by Ursula, and it started this community, this burst of interest in Solarpunk and this way of being. It is the opposite of cyberpunk, and I'm just going to show you a picture here of cyberpunk, and then we'll go to the chat. I'm not going to talk too much longer, but I just wanted to show you this part here because there's a difference between cyberpunk. And the reason why I want to talk about this is because, well, for many, many years, we have had movies that have focused on this type of future. And I know what you're seeing here. You can think of it in The Matrix, you can think of it in Blade Runner, you can think of it in Total Recall. All of these types of movies that are about the future usually have a dystopian type of theme. Why? Because they're highly urbanized. So the cities are almost like Gotham City. They're dark, they're dank, they're dirty, they're overpopulated. There is no greenery. I see very little of these types of movies with this type of theme of cyberpunk that really focus on nature. So Solarpunk became basically the addressing of what's missing in this technological age. So because a lot of people are thinking about cyberpunk, and there are cyberpunk fans, I'm not going to discredit them in any way, but Solarpunk is a little different in the idea that their world looks more like something like this. So I'm going to show you here another picture that I have. And the reason why it's different, and you can argue that this could be much more in the future, but everything is green technology. So there is less of a chance for it to turn into a dystopian type of future that is more about just the reproduction and using humans to reproduce technology and robots even, but it's more of a collaborative approach between nature and technology, in the idea that if you can see this a little closer up, there's a woman up here with her own garden. So although this is a very highly advanced type of civilization where they've almost built it way up into the sky, and this is going to basically address overpopulation ideas and things like that, there's still this organic kind of do-it-yourself culture that is also there. So you will have your own private gardens. So there is a touch of this organic humanity still there within a very highly technological world that can allow you this interconnectivity, this more efficient type of lifestyle, but you still have beautiful organic nature all around you. So it's a different look. I have another picture I'll show you, and then we can go to the chat soon. Before I do get to the chat, I thought that there was one thing I did want to talk about. Oh, that's the other one. Sorry about that. There was one thing I did want to talk about in terms of Elon Musk. It's important that I tell you, because I just did a video about Elon and his wife Grimes and how they had a baby that was half named for like her Elven spelling of AI, and his love of androids and their love for this airplane. And that got me started on kind of this pathway of thinking about the technology and understanding that this kind of cyberpunk type of community is something that is growing, and we see that. Well, I got confirmation from the Solarpunk community that Elon Musk is far more cyberpunk. Even his invention, his Cybertruck, was named after that. And cyberpunk is really just with the focus of technology. And although he does invest in solar panels, and so the idea is there of Solarpunk, he is not as green and as invested in nature as the Solarpunk community would like to see. He also is a capitalist in the idea that he runs these large factories, and we still have workers that are in these kind of terrible conditions, and there's this use of humans almost like they're not humans, but they're just to reproduce for him. So the Solarpunk community is different in the idea that if people were the ones that to be wealthy in the community, they would have to be on the equal level of understanding that basically they're there to help and fund and give back to the community and help the community. And just as Ursula said in her novel, there's a greater understanding of organism. Organism is this belief that everything works as one large ecosystem or organism. And so capitalism, Solarpunk, would not work because you have these large monopolies or these large companies that seem to be more in charge, and they don't really give back equally. And so in order for this type of world to exist, we need to get to a place where all souls not exactly make the same. It's not about having a forced type of socialist community at all. It is about everybody really being honest with themselves, living out in the full intentions to help one another, and see that every soul is taken care of. Every soul is living the life, and it is a vision of utopia. And many people believe that it can't exist. But I have found a community in the Solarpunks that I have met very briefly, but I'm a fast learner, and also just community members of my own channel, you have already been solar punks, but you just didn't know about the term, like me, we exist. So it's not a figment of imagination. We are out there, those of us that would like to see all souls kind of live in this way where everybody is at a place of really peaceful living, more efficiency, more just healthy type of wellness in their way of living. And this type of life is really generated by the Solarpunk community because you're working together as one large organism. Nobody is really being the dictator and creating horrible working conditions for you, or enslaving you, or making you work to fit a certain production deadline, which is what's happening with Elon Musk's factories. So although the idea of Tesla electric cars are good and the solar panels are good, there still is this remaining. He's not there yet in terms of being a full representative for the Solarpunk community. So he is considered very much by them cyberpunk. And we are trying to move out of that cyberpunk dystopian technology type of vision of the future into something far more greener, far more artistic expression, far more beautiful, and far more equal for all. And so this is the introduction to Solarpunk for you all. If you are interested in this and this is something that you would like to learn more about, I put in the description links for you of some great YouTube channels that I have found that will help to educate you more about this, because I'm not going to focus too much on this, but I am definitely going to help when I can. And I would love to collaborate with others too that are interested in this, because this is the type of future that I have in mind for Earth as well. And it is not the cyberpunk one. I've never been a cyberpunk. I've been a solarpunk. And solarpunk, as that definition was described, it means bright, optimistic, hopeful. And so there's a far more brightness, far more joy and, well, fairy light really within it than just what cybertech or cyberpunk can really show. And I just wanted to leave off with this. This was a great article about the art that you will find in Solarpunk. So this was done by Serena, and she basically talked about this in terms of what she was envisioning for Solarpunk and what has been an inspired aesthetic of it. Yeah, I think the aesthetic is really important to the movement. I think it's what gets people's attention more than the messaging necessarily, at least in the beginning. And yeah, it's nature-based, and it's kind of maximalist, and it's inspired by Art Nouveau oftentimes. Not all Solarpunk is, but I think Art Nouveau is a really important aspect of the aesthetic itself. Not only because it's a beautiful way to work in like nature imagery, but also historically, the Art Nouveau movement was a reaction against industrialization and capitalism. So it kind of fits in that way too. Art Nouveau rejects the idea that beauty is something that's just reserved for the rich. This was an artistic movement that everybody is entitled to a beautiful world, and that beauty and practicality are not mutually exclusive. So that's very much in line with Solarpunk ideals. I'd love to see more Solarpunk works really fully embrace the Art Nouveau aspect. So if you look up Solarpunk images on Google, you will find Art Nouveau type of designs. It's very similar in terms of bringing in the aesthetic of nature, because Art Nouveau, that was inspired for Rivendell and Lothlorien, you know, the elegant arches, and I can even show you with the background behind here, because this is Art Nouveau behind me. All that you see, everything looks like nature. The lamps look like white lily of the valley. You have this beautiful I don't know, apparatus of this tree here, probably giving out a lot of green air and helping to bring in the fresh air and oxygen throughout the building. So you have this way of having green technology. And if you watched my last video on how advanced technology can be natural, it can be magical, in the idea that it can be inspired by the intelligence of nature. In fact, many universities are already finding ways through their engineering program, through their biologists and scientist programs, are finding ways that nature has existed for billions of years, much more efficiently than humans have. And they are now inspired to make technology that mimics, and this is called biomimicry. And so, for an example, some people say that solar panels are not a good idea because if you're facing a certain direction, you're not going to get the sun. Well, in Austria, there's a house called the Gemini House, and it has actually been inspired by Arctic poppies that have a radar-like type of petal that actually follow the sun. They actually move. And they follow it because they don't get enough sun anyway in the Arctic in that area. So they're actually moving with the sunlight to capture it and store it. Well, they designed in that Gemini house rotating solar panels in very much the same way. So this is the way that technology has to go. And as I said on that other video, there are almost millions of years of research to learn from nature and be inspired to create technology that is just as intelligent as nature. This is how exciting it can get when you think of it. This is what all of these engineers who are getting into nature tech are starting to learn, is that there are far more things that you can research just looking and observing in your garden and in the forest. And you can take that knowledge of what you have observed in nature and then invent something that can help humanity. And this is the way that technology really needs to go, because this is how you have more of a harmonious type of world that lives and coexists with nature, does not harm it, does not pollute it, does not take in excess, does not live in imbalance. We humans do not want to live in imbalance with what we have in nature. Right now, we have the climate change issues and all of these environmental problems because for many ages, humans have been living out of balance with nature. And now, just now, they're thinking about, oh, we need to shift back that balance. We need to plant more trees. So basically, we're making up for all of the lost time of cutting down the forests, building things, taking from nature, and now finally, humanity is thinking about replenishing what they have taken. And so we are playing catch up in this way. But Solarpunk does not play catch up. And this is the difference. Solarpunk moves and is in harmony with nature all the time with its technology and its inventions. This is the type of future that humanity can have, where they're not living out of balance with nature and then having to make up for it and also experiencing, these climate changes and the turn of events that are happening with the environment. You'll never have that problem with the Solarpunk technologies because they won't cause all the pollution, the greenhouse gases, and all of the carbon emissions and things like that. This is a whole other technology. In fact, if you look up the Wikipedia, you'll see that it's all green energy, wind turbines, hydropower, anything that has to do with green energy is what Solarpunk is all about. So we can eventually get to that future, and then that will ensure that we are not living out of harmony and out of balance with nature. And so if you are interested in this, just look up hashtag Solarpunk, as I did. And I call it a portal because it opened up this portal, this community of people that are farming. They have their own farms, but yet they're into technology too. And they're interested in architecture and design, and they're interested in greener technology and how to employ that into the world. And it will bring you into this community that now I'm part of, and really happy to meet these people, because these are the nature-loving souls that also were aware that we are moving into this technological age, and we do need to act now so that we can ensure that we head into a more positive, brighter future, as the Solarpunk name is really named for, Solarpunk. And so please see the links in the description below. That will give you some places where you can go. I just kind of nudge you on the path, but you can go any direction you want. I really love following Instagram's Solarpunk hashtags, and then it just shows you beautiful eco-sustainable architecture and design, and it's just really fun if you're a nature-loving soul and just want to see and envision a brighter future that incorporates and never forgets the beauty of nature, and also loves art too, because art is really an aesthetic. It's valued. We don't want to see dark, dingy factories of just basically just a need to be met. We want the world to be structured, the infrastructures to be beautiful to look at too. And this is something that can be done for the same amount of money. It just requires some creativity. And we have so many artists and designers that are looking for work. And so if our government and those that build these infrastructures would start using these artistic minds, we will have a much more beautiful world all over. This is the problem with artists. They don't make as much money because society doesn't know how to use them yet. But when they understand that artists could be not just decorative outside jobs, but actually the foundation workers of this planet to build a more beautiful world, that's when the world starts to change and look differently. And I really believe in that type of future. I think I said everything I wanted to. Let's go to the comments and just have a nice chat tonight. I see all of you jumped on. I'm so excited. Merlin, thank you so much for being here. One of my admins to Starseed Fairies and Elves. We have a lot of fun. Man of Letters. Woo. I'm so excited to see you tonight. That's great. Man of Letters. I know that you would probably be really into Solarpunk. I'm so excited for you to jump on here. You said new to Solarpunk. Thanks for introducing. Yes, you're welcome. You're welcome. Yeah, I am new. Well, I'm not new. I've always been a Solarpunk fan. In fact, you see Solarpunk in a lot of like Miyazaki movies, like all of those animes that I really love. It's Solarpunk technology. It's the Solarpunk communities. You know, the Japanese and these anime movies, they have always kind of done it in those styles. So artistically, it's always been there in my heart. And I've seen it in Lothlorien. And Rivendell is not so much described for its technology, because Lothlorien is. And if you want to watch one of my videos called Elven Realms, and the way that Tolkien described them in his book, which is far more descriptive than the movies, you see this type of technology that exists. Like there's crystals, they don't run on this grid of electricity. It's definitely higher advanced technology. You know, the doors open by themselves. So there's like this whole mycelium network of interconnection that almost works like electricity in a way, or like a computer network where things are just automatic and centralized in Lothlorien. Really interesting. Rivendell, the only thing that's really interesting about that realm is that it's a house that just seems to keep expanding. So there's a little bit of magic in the Rivendell house in that way that it's smaller than it looks, or no, it's larger than it actually looks to Sam. he remarks how the rooms just kind of seem to expand and grow. But in Lothlorien, if you go back to the books, he's very descriptive about this advanced technology. And the Noldar elves are kind of known for this advanced technology that they put into their weapons and the way that they make things. So yeah, it all connects. I'm just so happy to find it out too, because I've always been a Solarpunk. So now we have the actual word, and now we can join all these communities and meet all these wonderful Solarpunk souls that love Art Nouveau and love, all these different artistic expressions, maybe not so much Art Nouveau, but it could be other types of elegant art, something really beautiful, or even modern and abstract too. There's a lot of really beautiful modern abstract art as well. So we might have this like really nice, diverse look of art too. We don't have to have it look all the same, which is really, the beauty and diversity too there. So yes, I'm so happy that you're on. Regina, it's good to see you. Vera, Maigavanen. For those of you who are new, Maigavanen is how we say well met in Elvish. You actually see it in Lord of the Rings movies. That's how the elves address each other. So happy that you joined in, Ro. Piscean soul looks so wonderful, like my dreams. Mine too. I'm a Pisces as well, but mine too, and this is something that I absolutely believe in. This is not some pipe dream. This is not something that's unattainable. We have the artistic expression here on Earth. We have the talent. We have the scientific minds that are going into the direction of nature intelligence. So we definitely will have it. In fact, I just read an article about how scientists are using the traits, the gene traits of bioluminescence. Like they're finding out what makes the bioluminescence organism glow. And then they're putting that gene trait in with a plant trait, and they're actually growing new plants that glow in the dark. And that could be our light system at night. I mean, this is the type of world that we might be entering into. And so it's really beautiful to think about. So yes, this is very much some visions of people, like in terms of what they have always dreamed of. I definitely have. Solarpunk life. So happy you jumped on. We live in a post-sacredy world. Yep, except for the artificial scarcity. Oh yes, scarcity put on by us by capitalism. Oh, sorry, not sacredy. Yeah, scarcity. Oh, and yes, that whole dystopian thing. I think people are just kind of looking for something else. And like you said, it is kind of put on by capitalism. Capitalism, I think that there exists an idea that capitalism could possibly be good if you had people kind of check themselves, on a moral level and not be so greedy. But as Tolkien said, with his famous quote, if less of us hoarded gold, it would be a merrier world. And so what he was saying was that really humanity has to get to a point where its riches needs to let go of this need to hoard the gold and not just share. It's not about giving it away freely. It is about, if you're employing people, then give them the same amount of money that you make or that your items make. I mean, there is this way to do it, and it becomes more of a community-based living where you cut out the middleman and you just share in that way. So this is how advanced societies start to look when you think of it. And Naren, yep, capitalism makes us very wasteful as a society. It does, definitely. Absolutely. Solarpunk life, you said, in a cutthroat world, kindness is punk. Hey, that's a good way to think about it. Yeah. I mean, because punk is really about kind of being rebellious and different and, taking a stand against the man. And so even though I might not think of myself, oh, I'm not punk, I am punk in the idea that I have always wanted to do something different, something a little bit more rebellious or something different than what exists right now in its current state. So if you feel that way, then yeah, you're definitely a punk, a solar punk. And then we have, oh, good. I'm so glad that we have some joiners in to Solarpunk. Vicey and Soul, seems like you're gonna join the community. That's great. Solarpunk life. Solarpunk life, arts and crafts movement, which is very Tolkien, dwarf, and elves, is also very Solarpunk. Yes, the Noldar elves and dwarves, they actually worked together in the first age before they started fighting. They basically worked together, and the dwarves would mine for the jewels, and the elves would then use the crystals, the Fëanorian blue crystals, and basically put them into lamps. And that's what you see in Lothlorien. You see these crystals. So there was this right there, that collaboration between the dwarves and the elves, and we can have that again. Surely we can. Yes, and this is about supporting our local artists, our designers, really allowing them to have the freedom to be creative, to make things really beautiful. If you follow Solarpunk hashtag and you just browse through, you'll see really beautiful art done on city murals. So a lot of the murals that you might be seeing that's popping up around your town today is probably done by a Solarpunk. It has maybe nature themes to it, something really beautiful. It's because these are actives that are moving into this place of beautifying the city, not so much just making it functional, but making it beautiful. And I really do believe, as Fyodor said, that beauty will save the world. When we really have our eye on beauty, we're going to care again. Some people have lost, and I think they've lost their sense of optimism. They become really disenchanted with, things in this world, and it can cause a little bit of depression. And so if you have your eye on what's beautiful, what's beautiful to you, because what's beautiful to me will be different than what's beautiful to you. And so it's about you just being truthful and kind of aligned to what you find beautiful, and then artistically expressing that. And when we're doing that, we're going to create more beauty together. And this can only be a really positive thing, because it can really bring a new lease on life to people. Beauty is what makes people think that life is worth living once again, because it's not only this sensuous experience of life, but it's a spiritual experience of life. As Plato said, beauty is the closest thing to God, in the idea that if we want to get really spiritual with it, and we think about the idea of beauty, a lot of the Greek philosophers felt that when you pursue a life of beauty in terms of, aesthetically, in terms of internally, and just always in pursuit of what is beautiful, you're getting closer and closer to knowing the all, the all that connects us. So yeah, I really agree with that in many ways. Regina, mothership Earth homes are what's up. Yeah, yes, Earth ships are really beautiful. There's a lot of concepts and designs about that. Having floating cities, when we get to the technology that actually can use sound and light technology that can beam us up, and we can live in the higher stratospheres of the layers of the sky, well, we can have Earth ships. We can have these places to visit or to live. I mean, this is the floating city of Babylon in a way we're getting back to, but maybe we won't have the same issue that maybe religion said happened with Babylon. And building the tower to Babel, what was that? The Tower of Babel? Tower to heaven. So, that's something to think about, right? How can we do it differently this time? And if we just have our heart in the right place, and if we keep a sense of spirituality to us as well when we're doing this. And spirituality doesn't necessarily have to be religious, but it can be a place of compassion and caring and, sensitivity towards each other, and a sense of being connected to everything, feeling this life stream energy within all nature and within all souls. And I think that this is what inspires Solarpunk too. You know, some people might not see it on a spiritual level, but that's okay. But if you are a spiritual person, you might, I know that I kind of experienced Solarpunk as a spiritual movement. In fact, Ursula called it, when Shevik, her main character, saw these types of communities, called it a type of apotheosis. And apotheosis is known in Gnosticism as a place where man kind of awakens its divine self and becomes godlike, apotheosis. And so in many ways, Solarpunk is an apotheosis of mankind. If we are able to move into the direction of advanced technology, beauty and art and nature, what more do we have to inspire to? To me, that's the pinnacle. I mean, unless we all graduate to light bodies and just exist in, like, floating around with light and crystals everywhere. But that, if we're talking about a physical manifestation of magic, if we're talking about a physical manifestation of real true beauty and a type of efficiency of life, this is it. This to me, Solarpunk is the answer for this, for all those souls that are looking to advance worlds, you know, that feel like they're starseed or really love, you know, the idea of extraterrestrial life and advanced type of civilizations. Well, Earth very much can be like that. Everything that we have imagined. In fact, I found out my astral travel to Pleiades that I made about 2 years ago on my channel was very similar to the Solarpunk designs. So it's interesting if you want to go back and listen to that. Maybe I should put that in the description for you too. And that was before I even knew that this community existed. So I think we're all aligning to something really real. Solarpunk life. Positive futurism is another good way of looking at it. And you can start today. And you have a great channel, Solarpunk life, like, because I saw some of your videos. You have a way of kind of challenging people to start a Solarpunk life. So you could put that in the comments if you want. What I basically understand is that you have to get to a point where you want to stop feeding the man in a way, you know, in the idea that we don't want to make the rich richer in a way. We want to look for our local communities, our local artists, our homemakers, you know, those that can make their own crafts and things like that. You know, don't go for the monopolies. Don't give your money to the large corporations that already have a lot of money. Give to those that really don't have a lot of money and somehow support your local communities and your local artists. And so Solarpunk life can just be a very simple way of just adapting to that type of lifestyle, which can be very helpful. But you can go to his channel and learn more about it, and I have it in the description for you. Livia Portes, damn, I literally just found what Solarpunk is like 2 hours ago, and then I searched it on YouTube and found your live. Such a coincidence. Oh, good. I'm so happy that you joined in. That's amazing. I'm sorry, I'm trying to rush through here and get through all these comments. Solarpunk life. The Solarpunk YouTubers are growing slowly. There are a few of us. Search us all out. Yes. Welcome to the movement, Olivia. Exactly. That's all we have been saying is I've been joining all these Facebook groups. There's actually a few groups you could join: Solarpunk communities, Solarpunk collectives, Solarpunk, and you'll just meet a lot of really kind, knowledgeable souls that are just heading in this direction already. So it's a really great way of meeting kindred spirits. You know, we're kind of soul kin, finding each other. Solarpunk Farmer, another YouTube channel. So I would love to have you on to help us understand, you know, how you can become a Solarpunk farmer, and you know, how does one juggle being into technology and at the same time being also close to the earth and organic and all of that. This sounds a lot like Orwell's description of Antichrist Catalonia in the 1930s. Oh, which ones? You're going to have to tell me. I'm sorry. This is Ursula K. Le Guin. Yep, that's the one. Yes, she is. Yeah, and I just read a very short part of chapter 3, but she's so descriptive about several other types of communities that Shevik goes around and sees. But I thought that, just that description about the factories and about the way that people seem to be happy to go to work. There's this difference in way of, I guess, seeing work. It's more part of your passion. It's part of, who you are, and it becomes a representative of what you can give back to the community. And so people are really happy, and the factory doors are open. And she goes into the descriptions of like the arches and the columns. So everything's really elegant in the factories. It's not this like dirty, dank place for people to work that can make them feel like they're undervalued. And it's because whoever's building the factories, they're trying to cut costs. But that's the thing, is these little things count to our souls. The way that things look aesthetically, it makes us want to work there. It makes us proud to put our own art, our own effort, our own work into these places. And so this can be something that we go into the future, just to keep this in mind, that beauty itself is very important. Solarpunk life, cyberpunk was a warning. I think so too. I mean, I don't know, Solarpunk. I know that there's a lot of people who consider themselves cyberpunks, like they're very proud of that. I saw a couple cyberpunk Facebook groups, but I think that this is it's just a different focus. Maybe the cyberpunks are not so much interested in nature as much as the solarpunks are, or maybe they just haven't really thought of it, kind of like Elon. Even though I think he tries, it's an afterthought rather than a passion. You can tell the difference. You have Greta Thunberg, who is much more passionate about the environment, but Elon, like, he started a project and then he did a tweet saying, oh, but we're halting the project now because it's affecting the environment. So it's great as an afterthought, but that's kind of how his projects have been. They've always been, oops, we're hurting the environment. So he needs almost like an environmentalist as an advisor to work with him, to be his right-hand man. He needs an elf. He needs somebody who's actually around him all the time to guide him in this process. And I think that that's the problem that Elon has. That's the problem that a lot of these large corporate leaders have. They just don't have nature in their heart and their soul. So the solarpunk souls basically are the ones to give that back to the cyberpunks. Those that are into technology. Solarpunks are basically just the collaborative approach to bringing in the thought of nature, to bringing in the thought of art and beauty. So I think that cyberpunk definitely could be a warning. It could be seen as a warning to solarpunks, and it might be seen as the only, how can I say it? The only direction that they can see right now. To be a solarpunk, you almost have to go above the vision of cyberpunk and jump into the more distant future, but harness that into now. So it's almost like skipping the cyberpunk technology age and moving into kind of a totally different branch. And not everybody is going to be interested in doing that. But I do know that there are some proud cyberpunks out there. And so maybe we can collaborate with them. So it's not so much, I see it as maybe we're not so much supposed to, be revolting against the cyberpunks, but maybe collaborating with them, working with them, reminding them, being that gentle reminder of art and beauty and nature. And I'm sure that it would inspire them, because who isn't inspired by art? Who isn't inspired by the idea of beauty? Who isn't inspired by nature? I think that that's our common ground. So if we can keep that in mind, maybe we can help those who are into cyberpunk move over. I have this theory, and we'll see if it works. Maybe you could tell me if if I was right or wrong about this. But so Elon, he just had a child with Grimes. Grimes is more of the Solarpunk soul. I don't know if you've noticed that. She considers herself an elf. She's very into nature, and she has her mind in that direction. And Elon's more the cyberpunk. So we'll see if Grimes kind of rubs off on him in a way. But I do feel that Solarpunks can inspire the cyberpunks. And I'm really hoping that this movement of Solarpunk can catch on so that it becomes more balanced, because cyberpunk it's just older, right? It's been around for probably a longer time. Yeah, like the Fifth Element, Pandora, that's cyberpunk. Dark Cities, I think that was another one. Total Recall, The Matrix, like all of these types of movies where it's always about robots, like Terminator. Not so much, because that, well, yeah, a little bit. Anything that has to do with the future, robots, and technology, and seeing the world in that way is cyberpunk. We don't really have a lot of movies that are solarpunk except for anime, because it does take well, I did hear that Wakanda is a very good symbolism for solarpunk, and I would agree with that. For the Black Panther movie, if you go back and watch Wakanda, the way that Wakanda is set up, that's pretty much how solarpunk communities are, or worlds, or societies, whatever you want to call it. But I would say Wakanda is closest to solarpunk. But if you have any other suggestions of other types of movies we can be inspired by for solarpunk, I would love to hear it. Naren, we'll just bypass that stage. No Syndicate, Dark Era. Yeah, I think so. And I think it's happening. Like I get this sense that a lot of people are gravitating towards more beauty and more nature. And I think a lot of the love of Art Nouveau, the love of fairies, love of elves, love of anything that's really intricate and elegant and complex in this way, I think it can help to inspire that, because you can't have Art Nouveau, fairies, and that type of elegance within that cyberpunk era. So in many ways, we are addressing that, I think, with our interests and just being inspired in that. So Arc, I'm sort of cyberpunk, but I love nature too. Yeah, I know that exists. So in some way we would have to partner, the cyberpunks and the solar punks have to come together. Maybe the cyberpunks can be the ones that really, help with the technology, but then the solar punks would be like, well, make sure it has nature tech, inspired by nature's intelligence, make sure it's eco-friendly. We don't want something that's going to hurt the atmosphere and cause, carbon emissions and things like that. So in many ways, it's going to be, I really do think, a partnership. And Albert Kennedy, agree, we are meant to be in nature. Yeah, well, we are. We're basically, we are nature itself, made with the elements and all of that. So I think so. In many ways, we're just getting back to it. Many Wars, White Wolf. I've been doing lots of 3D modeling. Maybe I can help bring to life, well, like an example of how it's like. Oh, that would be great. Yeah, we need more art. More art. There is a lot, I think, on Google Images, but there needs to be a ton more, just to inspire. I would highly encourage artists, designers to just never stop. It has to be almost like this train of thought that just goes right into the future. And this is just how our creativity just has to be, it really expressed, is that there can be no other vision of a future, and we just put it all out there. That's how I see it. So there's a lot of designers that are heading in this direction, which is really great. So yes, if you are an artist, I say go for it. We need that. We need that inspiration, that art. It'd be wonderful. The Solarpunk farmer. Yeah, I think a lot of people are into cyberpunk because of the aesthetic of an ultra high-tech society that is still a no man's land in a way. Yeah, I think so. I think, like I said, like they're not thinking like the next phase. It's like they're thinking of, okay, advanced technology, we're well connected, everything's working for us, it's more efficient, everything's, highly advanced. But then what about nature? What about really implying the intelligence of nature to our buildings, having living buildings, actually having buildings that have like walls of moss and plants and trees coming out of them and things like that, so that we never have to cut down forests. So it's a way of thinking about architectural design and just the way that we build our world in a way that I think cybertech or cyberpunks just haven't really thought of. This is just like the next phase. Maybe it's like a left brain, right brain thing. I don't know. That would be interesting, because it could be that those are who are very analytical, very logical. They might be just thinking just cyberpunk. And then those who are more artistic, into humanities and into, language and philosophy, then they're thinking solarpunk. Put it together and we have two sides of the brain. And that's what we need in society. We need both sides, just as we need within ourselves. We need both sides, to be balanced in a way. But some of us we use one side more than the other in terms of how we, process information or what we are interested in. So yeah, it's like two sides of the brain just coming together like yin and yang. Wakanda for life. Yeah, definitely. I'm going to watch that movie again and see, because somebody mentioned that, and I think that that's pretty right on, especially because they're using this technology of the crystal that they're using to power their worlds. And, it's kind of set off from the other parts of the world, and it's just a really beautiful landscape for all their souls to live in luxury. And yeah, nobody's without, right? Everybody's living really harmoniously together. Wakanda is definitely, I think, solarpunk. It's a good image of it. Solarpunk life. Afrofuturism is solidly solarpunk or solarpunk. Oh, is that another word to call it? Well, then there you go. That's great for our Black community as well, because then we can all join together, just knowing that all these terms just kind of connect. Okay, let's see. Yeah, David Rich, Blade Runner. That's cyberpunk. Solarpunk farmer. The solarpunk movement is a testament to the power of art and storytelling to help realize a better future. I love that. Very true. Arc, I'm not disagreeing, but in a way, isn't everything a part of nature because it has to have some natural element to be made? Well, yes, but when you look at, so I'll go back to that picture because I think that's a really good comment. And yes, I do believe that everything is part of nature, but there is an unawareness that can happen with the production of things. And you're starting to see it happen in urban civilizations. When trees are cut down, when plants are not planted, when farmland is taken over, there is a lack of awareness of how much nature means, because that is what gives us the photosynthesis process and helps with the carbon dioxide exchange. We need those. So in a cyberpunk world, nature becomes basically in the background and not really thought of as a developing technology happens. And this very much can happen, but I do see that we're kind of skipping over this because there is such a huge movement of green energy right now. I mean, even America just joined the Paris Agreement, which is a huge step, because if they didn't, it might have given the wrong message to other nations and it might have been almost like hopeless in terms of where America was going to go. But now the Biden administration, they're all joining in with this new green technology. So it is very hopeful that we are bypassing this, because this is a possible path where you can go into overcrowded urban civilizations that basically just use nature only for what they need. I mean, how many movies are out there right now? There's a few of them where it's like the future and there's like one tree left. I think there's a few movies I just saw. There's an animation. I think it's called Rachael. Let me see if I can look it up for you, because this is a really good movie. I think Rachael and the Fabulous World or something. It's actually done in Art Nouveau, because it's a French cartoon, and it's about the last tree that exists, because it's an industrialization of the world. I'm seeing if that movie is here. I'm so sorry, I can't remember this name. It's to do with Rachael, I know that. If I find it out, I will definitely put it down below for you. Oh, I know it's a French movie. See, I love technology for this reason. Here, I can always look it up, right? Not Amelie. Oh no. Okay, so that name just kind of escapes me right now, but I promise I will put it in the description for you, because it is a movie that is based on the idea that there's one tree left, and it's because the world just kept on developing and cutting down the forests. I mean, this is an exaggerated idea, and it is in the theme of hubris, where man is so arrogant and forgets things about nature, but it is more about the idea of what possibly can happen if nature is cut out in terms of awareness. But the good thing is that I believe that nature is coming back into awareness, into the consciousness of people, even really rich people like Warren Buffett. Like he just invested in so much solar panels, and I believe that a lot of people are trying to give money back to forests and to help basically replant trees. And so this can be really helpful that we don't have this type of future. I'll stop that one there. So yeah, in a way, yes, everything is nature, but we can cut that nature down. We see it all the time, and we don't replenish it. So we have nature within us, we have nature all around us, but if we keep using it and we don't replenish, this is when that imbalance is created in the world. And that could possibly be what could happen. David Rich, Tomorrowland. Oh, that was another movie. Is that Solarpunk? I'd have to watch it again. It almost looked like an amusement park to me when I saw it. Yeah, I would say that there was some green technology there happening. I'd have to watch that again to see. That would be a good one. Albert Kennedy, namaste. Thank you. I'm glad that you enjoyed. Peace, love, and light, and healing and abundance to you as well. Solarpunk Farmer, arcologies. Yes, yes. Arcologies are a really wonderful way of thinking about futuristic cities that have all the green technology. And Arc, true, but Blade Runner is a super amazing movie. Yeah, even though it's a cyberpunk movie. I mean, cyberpunk movies are actually very entertaining to me. I really enjoy them, but aesthetically, I wouldn't want to live in that type of world or that future. So I think that that's the difference. And also, it's not good for nature either. You really hardly see a lot of greenery and nature. in Solarpunk, there's nothing but greenery. You know, it's like you're basically living with technology, but in greener communities, greener civilizations. So it's very different in that way. Solarpunk life at ARC. Being extracted from nature does not mean it remains natural. Yeah, exactly. That's a good point there. Yeah, I mean, we definitely have a way of creating things that are inorganic, and we have things that will remain organic where we don't touch. We just have to make sure that the inorganic things that humans create are things that does not disturb the ecosystem, doesn't pollute the air, doesn't take up too much room where you have to cut down a whole forest to have it exist, you know, doesn't pollute the oceans. So this is something that we're going to have to think of, you know, always constantly with our technologies. So it is happening. You know, these are the types of environmental protection agencies and regulations that are going on. They're making sure that corporations, when they're building their big factories and big plants, that they're somehow, you know, eco-friendly. They're not disturbing maybe the environment around it. You know, that's really important. So I think that those types of regulations, or a way to keep these companies, you know, just conscious of their development in terms of nature and the environment, is really important. Jeffrey Sherman, a partnership of cyberpunk and nature. Kimberell, have you seen Horizon Zero Dawn? It's a wonderful example of natural, non-city landscape with people that have vastly futuristic technology. No, I have not, but I will try to see if I can watch that soon. Thank you so much. Horizon Zero Dawn. All right, everybody. That's another one to watch. The partnership between cyberpunk and solarpunk, in a way, or at least inspiring nature into cyberpunk. Which I believe that if you have nature enter into cyberpunk, it becomes solarpunk. But it has to also have a little bit of an artistic aesthetic as well. Not all the time, but it seems that most designers are thinking that way because nature itself is so beautiful. So if it's going to be working in harmony with nature, it also might emulate nature aesthetically, and physically it might look like nature too. It might just blend into the background, you know, where things right now just look like geometric shapes, you know, but it's more about looking like a leaf and looking like a flower, or looking like it just blends into nature as it is. There's ways to do that. We'll see. Thank you for that movie. I'm going to have to check that one out. And William Henderson, these things you're saying about plant engineering are, I think, tapping into what elves do every day. Probably. I said something about what the nature-inspired biologists and engineers are doing. What they're doing is they're basically looking at a moth's eye at a nano level and understanding that a moth's eye has these ridges on it and it absorbs all of the light. And so what they're doing is they're trying to use that same technology, learning from the ridges of the moth's eye, to put onto solar panels so that they absorb all the light. And so to me, that is the knowledge of what fairies have, because fairies and elves, they represent the elementals and knowing everything about plants and animals and trees. And so they would know everything from the very, you know, smallest atom to what is the usage, what is the intelligence of everything in nature. And so in many ways, scientists that are getting to that level, they are definitely, I think, being inspired by that fairy spirit or that elf wisdom in many ways. Nurin, my shadow is my inner capitalist. You know, there's a really great video that I want to recommend, because I don't want to make Elon Musk, you know, some villain here, because I do believe that we need to collaborate. We need to almost inspire those that are rich to help us in this movement, to move us, because, you know, even though this movement doesn't take money because we can start it on our own, if we get these people with all of these, you know, these big corporations to move with us, this would be a greater thing for the world. And I saw a video that was on Philosophy Tube. It's a YouTube channel, and let me go to the history here, what I just watched, and it's called Elon Musk. That's it, Philosophy Tube. This video is very interesting, where it shows who Elon is and how he's not quite what we want for a solarpunk world, or one that is more equal for all. But at the very, very end of the video, because it is about philosophy, there's a question about, he kind of questions himself, like, well, let's not just demonize Elon, because what if we ourselves start making a lot of money, you know, selling a lot of merchandise and things like that, and then we would have to question, would we do the same as Elon? And because everything is interconnected and we are all one, we represent different aspects of each other. And so we can look at Elon and see possibly he represents that greed in all of us. You know, the idea that once you make a lot of money, you want to keep making that money. You know, and so it's about kind of looking inward and seeing and accepting, like you said, like that shadow part of ourselves, and understanding where it comes from in those that are greedy. And we need to somehow inspire them, or simply wait until the next generation when we start having more of the power, you know, and let the old generation die off and the new generation of solar punks take over. You know, this is kind of the way we could do it. We can either collaborate now with those that are capitalists and those that are in charge of society, or we wait, push them out to power until, you know, they die off. And that's our way of kind of changing the system, and we move in when they are no longer able to. You know, there's a lot of different ways that we could do this, but I think you said a really true thing is that, you know, the capitalist is your shadow side. And so, yes, in many ways, we can all kind of question ourselves, would we do the same thing that Elon is doing, you know, building all these factories, becoming a billionaire, making all of this money? Or would we do something different? You know, what makes us different than him? It's a very deep question. And David Rich, Avatar, we're living in harmony with nature. Yes, Avatar is definitely an advanced civilization. Not so much solar punk, but here's the thing. Here's my theory on this. Any type of alien civilization, such as Avatar, or something that we imagine in our mind, almost like the Elven realms, where you wouldn't have so much the human technology, but you would go into more this faster way of almost like magic and connection. That to me is the next step after solar punk. So after solar punk exists on Earth and you master the technological skills of nature-inspired tech and moving in harmony with nature, eventually humanity will evolve to the level where Avatar is. You know, I really do think so. I mean, maybe we won't live so much in the way that they do. We might still have some of the things on our Earth that we hold dear, but at the same time, I do believe that eventually we won't have to have the material technology. But that's just a theory. You know, as we evolve, I think everything becomes less material and more energetic. And that's just a theory I have. But I think that that is what happens next after solar punk. Definitely. Vampirus, yes. And it's been around since the 1800s, and having more and more land taking over is just disheartening. Oh, what are you talking about here? like industrialization. And just how we're right now making up for all of that. Solarpunk life, with money and interest, we have mathed ourselves into oblivion. Yeah, almost into oblivion, right? We still have some time. But yeah, it does seem like we kind of painted ourselves in a corner that we're really working hard at, like light workers, environmentalists, spiritualists, shamans, yogis, all of these that are really nature connected individuals are actually, the fairies, we're all working together to get out of that corner that humanity has kind of painted itself in now. Many ways, yes. Jeffrey Sherman, The Last Tree, sounds like the Lorax by Dr. Seuss. Yep. Yeah, there's several movies in that theme. So we could take that as a warning that that's a exaggeration of where we can go when we really, move towards an advanced technology, and these corporations just keep forgetting nature. They keep cutting down those forests. They keep building these huge factories. They keep on, making all these machines and these robots, but yet there's less trees, there's less flowers and plants, and what's happening to our world. That's exactly what can happen. So Solarpunk is addressing that, making sure that we can have artificial intelligence, we can have robotics, we can have that, but we would have it in a way that it would be partnering with nature and never being out of balance with it. Solarpunk life, yeah, we ought to be the Lorax and speak for the trees. Yep. What did Dr. Seuss say? Like, if someone like you does not care, then nobody does. Isn't that how the quote goes? It is all up to us, individually, where we put our focus. And I think this has a lot to do with our own personal experience of this reality, but also we're in this collective too. Like, I just had my world open up by meeting all these solar punks. And I think that this is how it works. It's like, as you go through your awakening process and remember your true self and what you're interested in, and you get more authentic with who you are, then you meet other souls that can join you on that path. And this is how we grow, and we gain this consciousness shift in the collective. So I like that name of the Facebook group called Solarpunk Collective, because in many ways it's a collective mind that is, we're all diverse, we're all very unique and different, but we're working together to produce this type of vision for the world. So join the Solarpunk Collective with us. Many Wars, White Wolf. We need more people to listen to Indigenous people's voices on nature to help out too. We do. And I'm so happy that the White House now has its very own Indigenous people council within the White House. I think that was a very good move for Biden, his administration, at least, to have that. And we have some congresswomen who are Native Americans that can help bring that. And I watched the summit from the UN, basically on the green, the Paris Green Energy Project. And it was a lot of that, like a lot of the Native American women. They asked especially women because they are very aware that the divine feminine energy can really help bring in this kind of Mother Earth nurturing way of being. Not that men cannot. It's just, I think that the UN wanted to bring that out more, because in the past, well, it's been less women in government, right? So it's nice to see that in world nations that women are thought of as, having the wisdom to bring us back to nature just as much as men were, because we know in other types of civilizations, there are always, witch doctors and shamans. There are always male chiefs that are very connected to nature itself. But it's like the druid type of community is coming back in a way where women and men who are close to nature are bringing back that wisdom to society now and coming, to that equal place of power. It's really nice to see. So yes, I agree. We need more of that. Chris Aerosmith, oh, it's fine. Join the party. Better late than never. Okay, so Horizon Zero Dawn is an RPG video game. So not a movie? Or maybe a movie too? Let's see. Hold on, I think I skipped something. You guys are all talking here. I'm so glad that you're chatting. John Morey, with the end of the Matrix, when Neo, the neocortex, aka higher mind, felt the machines light with his heart, he loved them and they fell before him. May you have comfort in your own love. May you have comfort in your own love too. Yes, at the end of the Matrix, that is a beautiful realization. I think that idea that, when he becomes blinded, he sees all is light. So even the machine city was light. And so when we get to a point where we start to use machine technologies in a way that does not affect our environment, our nature, in terms of the factories and the distribution and the way that we create them, that's when we start to see everything kind of come together, merge together in the way that I think that the Matrix was trying to show, that everything is connected. It's about harmony. And harmony is about having all parts working together, never out of balance, never in discord. So that's the important thing, is we don't want the machines and the technology to be out of balance with nature. We don't want them to not be thought of by the programmers and the engineers. But like I've shown in my other video, good thing that many engineers and programmers are thinking that way. They're even thinking about how to program robots to act like ants. So instead of having a human intelligence, they would actually act like ants in their communities. And you could just do that by setting, codes of laws of the way that animals act. And you would do it maybe non-predatory type of animals, like ants are good because it shows this kind of community service that robots can do. And in fact, they showed that robots who are coded to act like ants, they are very polite with one another. They're helping each other build something together, and they're never overstepping each other. So there's this kind of politeness that's happening within the ant community that the engineers are seeing more and then using that in the robots. So this is the way that robots can be inspired. And then that works in harmony with who we are as nature and with our nature itself in production. Many Wars, White Wolf. Everyone spam Elon Musk with Solarpunk. Just kidding, but really. Funny you said that. So I tweeted, I tweeted to him, I said, at Elon Musk, I said, it would be really nice if you could focus on Solarpunk and not cyberpunk now. So we'll see if he even responded or even saw it. Actually, I say, why not? Why not? Just, I think his fans, he has so many fans who are cyberpunk, lovers. They're not even thinking about solarpunk. Solarpunk is kind of a newer term in terms of not everybody has heard about it. It's a new idea that came about in 2010, and we're only in 2021, and cyberpunk was from like the 80s. So we have, I think, the responsibility to build awareness with this. So why not? Absolutely. Talk to Elon Musk's followers, tweet to him, inspire solarpunk. That can be a really helpful thing, I believe. I mean, even if you just change one Elon Musk lover into, a solarpunk lover instead of just cyberpunk, you never know. It can have a trickle effect. We really can change the future. As Galadriel said, even the smallest person can change the course of the future. And that includes your small tweet, one tweet that you do. So who knows? Maybe Elon will see mine and maybe he'll see yours too. That would be great. Okay, so I'm getting consensus that Horizon Zero Dawn is a video game. So I will check that out still. I lump my video games. Some of you know that. Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind and the City of Lupita and Castle in the Sky. Thank you, Rose, for the Miyazaki movies. Thank you so much. Yes, and the other movie that I really love, Princess Naminoki, that movie is about, the idea of technology taking over the forest. And so that's the warning. And in his other movies, you see the harmony between nature and technology. And so I love that he includes that. It's very close to nature in that way. And there are many animes that show this. So if you have any suggestions, please put them down below. I love anime. I know a lot of my subscribers do too. And I think we could all recommend some really great anime with Solarpunk inspiration to each other. It'd be great. Solarpunk Farmer, love Philosophy Tube. Yeah, that was a really great video because it really went into depth about Elon Musk. And at the same time, it was fair at the end to question, we can't make him entirely evil. We have to also understand where this comes from. And, would we do the same? And once we understand each other, that's when we can change each other or inspire each other to be better, or just by understanding each other, I believe that we have a greater chance of collaborating and really, being in harmony with each other. So I like that. Yeah, that was a good video. Nurin, a vine growing up into the sky, but it grows apartments with flower roofs and then keeps growing up. Sounds lovely. Definitely. Solarpunk Farmer, the avatar is sort of like biopunk. So there's a little bit of a difference there. Interesting. Biopunk. Okay, so that's a different one that I'll have to look into. Solarpunk Life, thank you so much for chatting. I really appreciate it. I'll have you on, hopefully, for you to just give us more tips of how we can start the Solarpunk Life. So thank you so much for joining. Solarpunk Farmer, I would love to have you on. Help us be inspired to farm, and whatever else you want to tell us about your experience with the Solarpunk community and what it means to you would be wonderful. This is great. Oh, let's see. So Merlin, you just jumped on. That's okay. I'm glad you did. Mary Preston, I had a dream where people used VR to see their past lives, a virtual reality, to see their past lives, and me and a Pleiadian were watching them, and I could feel their feelings, and the Pleiadian guy was using a machine to monitor what they saw. And the humans were wearing the goggles and were in a circle around us on their bed. Interesting. Yeah, virtual reality is definitely a thing that's coming. And Ready Player One is a great movie about kind of the cautions with that. Like, you can get so involved with virtual reality and in your own world. I know when I play a beautiful video game like Lord of the Rings Online or World of Warcraft or Black Desert, and I'm an elf and I'm fighting monsters, I can play for hours and then my whole life just slips by. So there is, I think, a very important warning in the idea of don't live your life in virtual reality. Use it as a way to inspire you, to, to basically help the imagination, spark it a little bit. When I see these elven realms in these video games, it really fills me with senses of visions for a more beautiful life. And I love it, part of my life, but there is a cautionary tale with that. And Ready Player One has a good one. That's a good movie about that. I just thought I would mention that virtual reality because we're talking about technology now. Starfish, I had never heard of this movement before now, but it goes exactly alongside my beliefs. Thank you so much for making this video. You're welcome. Yes, I wanted to bring it into my subscribers because I have a feeling that a lot of elves and fairies and starseeds and those other kins and, those who just resonate with the elves and just, have always loved nature, you're going to already kind of be interested in this because you are watching me on YouTube with your computer, so you're very aware of technology. So how can we ensure that technology just goes in the direction where it's in harmony with nature? So Solarpunk is definitely the way to go. It's really nice because it does concentrate on advanced technology, but there's also low tech as well. So there's do-it-yourself culture and the idea that you're creating things with your hands, making things on your own. You're farming on your own. There's an organicness to that too. There's a lot of this kind of natural, just earth to human hand connection, which is really important. And at the same time, you also have the advanced technology as well. And so it's just learning how to integrate both of them that will make a more peaceful, harmonious world. So I'm really happy that you joined. Psalm 711, how you doing? Mary Preston, this is random, but you're okay. Sorry, I know we're a stranger, but I like to instantly connect. Oh, good. See, I'm happy about this connection. See, this is what the internet does. It makes us being able to connect. So I do not fault technology. In 2021, I have to say that I really love the blessings of the internet. It has given me this wonderful community of souls to meet and connect to, and I don't feel so alone in the world anymore, which is wonderful. Facebook has been a blessing for me. It's been just a wonderful experience to blog about my feelings and express myself and my dreams and my visions, but there are some cautions. We just have to make sure that we head into this future that is just going to make sure that we're doing it that's, eco-friendly, eco-sustainable, and just always remember kind of the bigger picture than your little computer screen or your little iPhone screen. Cyberpunk started being big after the book Neuromancer and was released. If you have read, maybe you could make a video on it and how it relates to a cyberpunk world. I don't know if I'm going to do a cyberpunk video only because there's so many other videos out there. I decided to do a solarpunk one because this is my passion. I just wouldn't be able to do a good video on cyberpunk, to be honest, but I'm sure that there's a lot of other videos out there that would be. When I think of cyberpunk, it's like, it can almost be space elves and space robots and that kind of look where it's, tech music and it's that hardcore technology kind of background, but at the same time there might lack that nature aspect, which really is more my, I guess, and also the artistic one that's more my my passion. But yeah, I think that there's a lot of videos out there for cyberpunk. It's been such a big, I guess, an interest for a lot of people. So Solarpunk is really new. I think I just walked into this one here. Psalms 711, how you doing? YouTube post, you're very kind. I will always love you like family so much. Aw, and I will be there for you if I can. I think I'm a Christian mystic, maybe. Oh, I've been looking it up. Yeah. Well, I'm a mystic, and I see a lot of good and a lot of wisdom in Christianity itself, as I do in other religions. I believe that spirituality can be more universal or less rigid and traditional and less exclusive and sectarianism, but I will always kind of understand and see the higher wisdom that calls people to certain spiritual paths. So yeah, it's nice to connect to you. And I think mystics, if you're a Christian mystic, you already kind of see that. Gnosticism is very much a Christian mystic ideology, as well as some other, I think, Christian branches. Many Wars, White Wolf. Yep, I used to be a World of Warcraft addict playing as a blood elf. I was a night elf. And yes, like years off my life almost. We have to watch. We can definitely go into that world. Lord of the Rings Online, when I discovered that game, I mean, I made a couple videos on my channel of it. I was just like living in Rivendell and forgetting to do chores and things like that. I mean, it can happen, really can. So yeah, there's a little bit of caution in entering into that world. Oh, right. Great Works Alliance, Solarpunk Society, and Community Rocks. Thank you for those hashtags. Thank you so much, Great Works Alliance. I really appreciate you leaving that for us. Well, I think I went through all of the comments. I think you have enough information now to understand. Definitely check out Wikipedia. You may find that I was the one to add Art Nouveau because I found that on Wikipedia, it was only Baroque and it was only Renaissance art. But then I saw articles and I saw the way that Ursula described things, and I saw Solarpunk collective and community talking about Art Nouveau. So I thought that I had to add that to Wiki. So now it's part of Wiki. So you'll be able to read more about that there. And I believe that now you have this information, now it can start your experience with it. And if you want to join the community, you can join these Facebook groups. But if you want to be a lone wolf in the way, where you just do things on your own, I would suggest that you're an artist and you're designing things yourself, or you're finding things online that you really appreciate. And you can use the internet to spread these ideas. Hashtag Solarpunk. Always make sure that you use that term. Solarpunk, I thought, was named or it was spelled with solar punk and separately, but actually it's together as one. So just make sure that you use it together, Solarpunk, because that's what you'll find more of in terms of searches on the computer. And when you have this term, that allows you to connect to other ideas and other communities and other groups and other artists and other people that are already thinking that way. And it also will help to get the term out. What we need to do right now is, if you really love Solarpunk, you really want this in the future, you want Elon Musk to somehow be inspired by Solarpunk, you want all of these rich, wealthy people to start thinking about art and the aesthetics of their factories and their places that they build, and have nature-inspired technology and greener energy, well, start spreading the word Solarpunk everywhere you can, like fairy magic. And this is how we get the name out, and this is how we really make a difference, I believe, because this is a newer type of community, a newer type of movement, but it can move fast. I do believe, with enough people working behind it, to get the name, the terminology out there, because all you need is the terminology. And so somebody told me that I would be really interested in Solarpunk. And as soon as I looked that up, my whole world expanded and everything made sense. I put all these puzzle pieces together in my life. Like, where was I going on my channel, and what was I interested in all the time in my life, and how was I thinking about things in the future? And it just makes so much sense to me. So if you can be that same person that was like that for me and do that for another, you're going to help spread the word of this community like I'm doing tonight. And we just work in this way and just spread it out as far as we can and have as many as possible join in the movement. So everyone have a wonderful night. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll stay on and chat with you all. I'm just going to end the video so it doesn't take too long. And take care, everyone. Thank you so much for joining.